Five Star Founder is a podcast created by founders for founders. I believe everyone you ever meet knows something you don't. Each episode features a founder from a variety of backgrounds, sectors, and entrepreneurial stages, with whom I hope to learn, celebrate, understand, and get a deeper insight into their world. We will cover everything from what drove our founders to start their company to what keeps them awake at night, biggest regret to date, as well as their career highs, lows in their journey so far. So I'm actually really excited today because although it took a while for the diaries to sync up, I've got to say I'm glad it happened because this is the first episode where we've got both of the co-founders of the company to take part. I mean, when you're in business or when you're a business founder, you end up meeting all sorts of people, not just in your own industry, but in other industries too, and people who are in their own kind of individual journeys. I can honestly say Josh and Markus are two of the soundest guys I've met in the last 3 years. One, it could say a lot about the people I hang out with, I guess, but nonetheless, I've had a few drinks with these guys and they're very good. I couldn't think of a better intro for that, but yeah. I can honestly say they've been good. And we pretty much started the company around the same time. So I felt like we had been on the same journey together. So, that's the reason I wanted to get you both guys in. They co-founded Joy Resolve, an award-winning lifestyle and homeware brand that believes in bringing joy to people through form, function, and resolve solutions. The next bit I want to quiz them on, but what they say, how they describe themselves is that they focus on consumers' evolving needs of well-being while promoting creativity and reconnecting people with the present moment through tangible experiences. It's a bit of a mouthful, but hopefully we'll get into that in a bit. The company's breakthrough product, Barry, a tea and coffee brewing alarm clock, raised over $800,000 on crowdfunding platforms, is now in over 52 countries. They still hold the record for the top 10 most funded products on Kickstarter in the UK. Out of all the companies that we've featured in the series so far, Joy Resolve has probably received the most amount of prestigious press coverage I've seen. List of media outlets they've been covered by includes The Times, Financial Times, How to Spend It, GQ, Hypebeast, Elle, Evening Standard, T3, Monocle, and the list just goes on and on and on. If I remember correctly, the first day we all met was when we actually ended up at a trendy club in Hackney. Although it was just a school night, we actually ended up bonding over a few pints and tequila shots. By a few pints, I mean a lot. And by shots, I mean a bottle. Welcome to the show, Josh and Markus.
Wow, what an intro. Thanks for having us.
Firstly, I want to ask you, so these are just rumors that I've created myself, but is it true that Josh has a tattoo which says, "I heart Steve Jobs," and no one actually knows where Markus actually is from, including himself?
Oh, wow. I mean, I wish I had a tattoo that said I love Steve Jobs. I would think that actually James Griffiths might have that because I'm surprised he doesn't dress in like a black turtleneck and walk around with...
The reason I wore a black shirt today is because I thought you, Josh, would wear something black because the whole Steve Jobs thing. And Markus, where are you actually from? Like, I was doing my research and I was like, wait, this guy speaks German, Sinhalese, English, and is a man of mystery.
And French, yeah.
Oh, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
All right. Yeah, I think, it's kind of a bit crazy, but yeah, I think I basically grew up in Sri Lanka because my dad was doing like work down there for the UN. And then I moved to Germany and then so I'm German originally. Grew up there, and then moved here. So I think it's a bit of a crazy combination. Yeah, it's quite difficult now. I'm starting to ask myself where do I think I'm from. So, now that I've lived here for 10 years, that's starting to change a little bit as well. But yeah.
And I know that Josh is actually from Jersey. And I think the first couple of weeks I knew that he was from Jersey, I would always say, hey, what's it like to grow up in Jersey? When can I come and visit you? All sorts of Jersey. I think he got sick of me after the first couple of weeks. My first serious question for you guys is, I know who you are, but who are you and what do you guys do?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll go first. I think just a quick caveat. I mean, both Markus and I do like to waffle on at times because we get passionate, and I'm dyslexic and I love to take the like kind of long route round. So just interrupt when we're going on to. I mean, for me, so yeah, I'm Josh Renner, CEO of Joy Resolve, where our mission is to enrich life, create joy through kind of conscious, sustainable products that we bring to market.
Yeah, so I'm Markus. I am COO at Joy Resolve. I mean, at this point in time, it's a big title, but to be honest, it's mainly around helping achieve business growth within the company and helping put some of the products, that Josh comes up with and that we want to plan for the future and make sure that we're driving, commercial growth of them. So that's why.
When I actually first met Josh, I had no idea what the product is about. But since then, I think Joy Resolve has become a separate, I guess it's a group company that you will produce more items. Is that how it works at the moment?
So obviously the first product that we brought to market was the Barrister that we originally crowdfunded on Kickstarter back in 2016. And we've been kind of since then just trying to get that kind of find our rhythm with that product and make sure that we grow online and through retail. And then last year we launched additional products to kind of add on to the products through the refinement that we got from our community, which was they wanted something that could brew tea a bit better than the current product. So we added a brew chamber on, and people wanted to charge their phone at night. And so we've got a USB in the back of the current product, the Barrister. And I don't think I've even explained it, but the Barrister is like a coffee brewing alarm clock. So you wake up to a coffee or tea in the morning, and it's kind of has this kind of alchemy aesthetic that's quite interesting. But and last year we launched a wireless charger that plugs into the back, made out of recycled aluminium and FSC sustainable sourced wood. And so we're kind of like building the product portfolio through kind of feedback from our community and just where we think that we need to kind of solve a problem.
How did you guys actually meet? Because Josh went to Nottingham, Markus went to King's. He's a lawyer, or he studied law. And how did you guys actually hook up? What's the backstory behind that?
Yeah, I mean, it is quite a crazy story. Sometimes I ask myself, I have no idea how I ended up in this position. I mean, at the beginning, it is quite a fun story, actually, how we met. Because at the beginning, obviously, from my background, you would say, well, he studied a law degree, so why is he doing product? I guess when I was at university, I was part of a startup kind of based group that were trying to, it's called Enactus. It's basically trying to use startups and entrepreneurship to help people in need. And that's how I got exposed to entrepreneurship. And I was trying to look at all of these cases that I was reading, think to myself, this is a lot more boring than the stuff I'm doing sort of on the side. And I just I thought that entrepreneurship might be something that I might be interested in. So I started kind of exposing myself to that. And I got a job out of university working for a startup business at the time that was looking to scale to become like a hardware accelerator. And so I spent 5 years there. And as part of that, I was kind of messaging literally everybody in the London space who's trying to do a hardware product at the time. Probably received about 100 sort of messages from me being like, do you want to work together, etc., etc. Because we were looking to do the manufacturing and design work for a lot of startups. And then so I ended up messaging Mouse, which was a company that Josh was working with at the time, and somehow ended up in an interview situation where Josh was actually in the interview. And I guess Josh he was in the interview as part of Mouse, but then at the same time, he gave me a ring afterwards saying, well, I'm doing Barrister, that's my own product. What are your thoughts on that? I'm looking to find a co-founder for that and scale it. So I guess it's a bit crazy because had Josh not been in that room, we would have never met. But that's how we met.
That was it. It was quite a funny interview. I mean, I was working at Mouse. We were kind of like helping each other out as we were growing. So I was trying to scale my business. They were trying to scale their business. And we were basically just in this kind of situation where I could help in the interim with some of their creative side and kind of product ideas, where they could also help kind of support me in terms of like the business growth side of things. And so we always had this kind of great relationship with one another, and they always took me under their wing. And James, the kind of CEO of Mouse, just brought me in on this interview. And I think at the time they were looking for like a product manager, perhaps something like that. And Markus was kind of like a guy of just many talents. And I don't think the fit was right at the time. So I wasn't poaching. I just reached out to Markus, and we ended up going for a drink in the Cat and Mutton.
The legendary Cat and Mutton.
Legendary Cat and Mutton. And just shared what I was up to. And I think it was just perfect timing because I think Markus was also thinking about doing something different at the time. And I think it worked for both of us.
So for people who don't know what Mouse is, another legendary company, which James, JG and JD and Lucy, I'm trying to get one of them guys to come in for the series 2. You actually designed a lot of, because I remember when we actually first met, you were in the same floor and you were actually working on, I think the MagSafe or something very similar. I remember seeing that on your screen and I was like, oh, okay, so this is what but I had no idea you also had the Barrister going and that was your main kind of thing. And then you were doing some work with Mouse. Could you tell us a bit more about how that actually worked?
Yeah, so I was doing like 3 days a week with them whilst trying to support myself. So because I was just trying to keep as much money in the business in terms of from the crowdfunding side, everything was happening with the Barrister in terms of like the design for manufacture. And so, yeah, I was helping out with Mouse in terms of just like general kind of product design ideas. And it was at a time where they're obviously not as structured as they are now. So it was a real kind of like startup kind of mentality when we were just kind of throwing ideas at the board and seeing what was sticking. And yeah, we would, come up with some ideas that would work with their cases. And yeah, when it came to things, there were some products that are on there now, but have grown in terms of like the design and the engineering that I wasn't part of. But yeah.
How did Barusa actually work with in terms of like did you raise the Kickstarter and then work for Mouse and then you set up Barusa?
Yeah. So we raised in 2016 and I met Mouse around that time. I think I met them after I did the Kickstarter, and they were part of Virgin Startup. And I remember just kind of, I applied for Virgin Startup and to try and see if I can get like a business mentor, because I didn't really know much about business, but I knew, kind of like this product and that people wanted it. So I was looking for a mentor there, and also they could give you up to 20 grand in terms of funding. And so yeah, I did my research about who was part of Virgin Startup at the time. I was looking for people who are specifically in hardware, and I could only come up see these guys, Mouse, and it was James Griffiths, Josh, and JD at the time. And I remember just sitting down one time whilst I was waiting for my mentor, and James kind of walked in, sat in front of me on the sofa in front, and I was like, dude, I need to speak to you. I'd love to just kind of like pick your brain about this product that I've got and just seeing if you have any advice. And then gave him a ring the next day. We met up and he just was like, look, I've got guys out in China who are helping with the kind of manufacturing side of things. We can help you, because that's what I was struggling with at the time. And then from there, he needed help with kind of general kind of design and creative support, along with like making the videos and understanding the crowdfunding from their point of view, because they were looking to raise on Indiegogo. With that, and yeah, the rest is history. And we've just been kind of growing together ever since, and they've been such a huge support to what we're doing. Happy to lend an ear and some advice, because they've obviously gone through everything and more. And so yeah, and then I kind of peeled off in 2017, I think, and that's when I met kind of Markus. And then yeah, Markus joined around 2018, and we've just been going from strength to strength.
Yeah, because a lot of the founders that we've featured have come from a very standard kind of corporate role and then gone into a startup or set up on their own. But did you know that you wanted to join a startup when you first went in for the meeting with the Mouse guys? And when Josh actually pitched to you, what was it that convinced you to join him on his journey?
Wow, yeah. I mean, there was a lot of things that I thought were great. I mean, instantly looking at the product, I was amazed, because it is like, I was just like, wow. The fact that this had been just one person like on his own, like it really impressed me. So yeah, I guess my background was like corporate in the sense of, originally I didn't really sit down and think a lot about what I wanted to do. I just went, okay, let's do, I don't know, law degree, and let's just go for that. And then I guess I figured out during university that actually, like, I had this deep kind of longing to create a startup and to leave like a mark on the world, and a positive one. So I kind of thought that being in entrepreneurship aligned a bit more with my values of what I really wanted to achieve. And so I decided at the end of my degree that I wasn't going to go down the corporate route. I did join a startup, which now is a bigger company. But at the time when I joined it, it was still just 5 people, and we were just trying to go and grow and scale it. What really convinced me about Josh in particular was that I just thought that we made a really good team in terms of sort of the approach. I'm very process driven. When you do a law degree, you're taught to follow rules, and like you have to answer questions in a certain way, and you really have to follow the process. And then Josh is really creative. So that's why we make such a good team, because you do need that creativity, but you also need that process as well. So yeah, I just thought we'd make a great team, to be honest. And I love the product, and yeah, and it agreed with everything I wanted to do.
So it's like Josh is the Steve Jobs and like you were the Wozniak.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I mean, we definitely need both. So like at the end of the day, I often try to avoid risk and minimize risk, and kind of draw up a lot of spreadsheets and look at a lot of kind of strategy in terms of saving costs and putting costs in the right places. And then equally, if on the other side you've got a more creative approach that thinks a bit more outside the box, then that's really how you can achieve the growth together. So yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah, Josh is a great visionary.
I wouldn't give myself the holy grail of the Steve Jobs title. I mean, if we were to I'd say maybe a bit more Johnny Ives. I wouldn't say Steve Jobs. I mean, I couldn't live up to that.
Josh, like I've been to your offices. I've seen the drawings that you make and the products that you're working on, and it's like for a layman who has no background in design or that kind of thing, it's really impressive because you kind of see what you're about even without having known you. You know, like yeah, these guys are creative. These guys do product something to do with this because. Josh, you actually started off working in architecture, and I guess like when you've studied industrial and product design, you kind of end up working for people who do these kind of things. Like, did you feel like you had like freedom with your creativity when you were working for these other guys?
Well, yeah, I think, I didn't study architecture. I had like an internship tech practice back in Jersey, kind of whilst I was at college. And yeah, I mean, I just didn't think that it was, well, I don't know. I mean, when I found out there was a 7-year kind of journey to get to your actual architect license, it kind of put me off a little bit. And it wasn't ticking all my boxes. And then I heard about kind of product design and what you could do there. And yeah, it just felt like there was this kind of creative freedom with that. And obviously there is creative freedom with architecture as well. But I just felt like there was more so at the time with product design. And you can go into so many different areas within product design, where it's like a bit more crafty, automotive kind of direction, or actual general product or furniture, like more kind of engineering and science. And so it was just trying to figure out what really was the best kind of direction just for me to kind of move into. And yeah, like the kind of BA product design is what I studied at Nottingham Trent. And that's where I actually designed the product, the Barrow Cert, in my final year degree. Yeah.
So this was actually a product that you had designed for as part of your, is it like a dissertation that you had to submit something? Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was, you set your own project, and we had a minor and a major. I did like a light in my minor, and in my major, I just kind of set a brief for myself. I just thought, like, at the time, I felt like I was always on my phone before going to bed, and then waking up. It was just a bit of a stressful kind of experience, with like this alarm just like sending stress cortisol to my brain and everything. And so I was like, there must be like a funner way of like kind of getting up in the morning. And I was just like, the more research I did, the more I kind of saw that there was a big problem out there, and this doesn't solve all the problems, but I had fun with it. And another of the reasons was like encouraging a ritual before going to bed to kind of unwind. And then the best experience about getting up is trying to encourage all kind of 5 senses to kind of get you up. And so that's where this comes in, because you've got all the 5 senses being stimulated through this product. And so yeah, the Barrow was born, and then I put it up on my website when I graduated, and then got around like 20,000 email signups to people wanting to buy this product.
Wow.
And then it was just like, right, what should we do here? And so it was never really like, I'm going to start my own business. It was like, people want this, I think we should try and give it to them. I was young at the time, so that, I wasn't really restricted in anything. And so the time was really like now. So I just had to kind of figure it out.
If someone said to me, hey, coffee alarm clock, I like, knowing you now, my opinion is different. But if someone said, oh, you wake up with a coffee, I'd be like, okay, that's cool, because I struggle waking up and I love having coffee in the morning. But the first time I saw the product itself, it was so unique. It kind of, you can tell that someone's put in some serious thinking behind every little element of the product. Like, how long did it take you to, and what did version 1 of the Barry look like versus what it looks like now?
To be fair, like, not much has changed. I actually, the design was inspired by almost like the vinyl record player. I just thought it was quite interesting to see how like vinyl was still like a big part of the society that we're in now. And like, there was even a resurgence of people buying vinyl, despite the fact that everything's becoming digitalized and it's all streaming now, and all your music's on your phone. So I just thought that's quite nice to see that you have this like interaction with a product that's so analog. And so I was trying to kind of get this into this product. And yeah, the original product was actually what I launched with on Kickstarter. So
wow.
I actually made the model and used that as like an aesthetic prototype to make the video and to encourage people to pre-order on Kickstarter. So not much has actually changed. It's just been designed for manufacture and to be a bit more commercial in a sense, but there's still work to go there as well.
I don't know anything about your industry or the world of how the design works, but I do know that sometimes version 1, it could be very it's very aesthetically pleasing and like it looks really cool and it grabs people's attention. But when it comes to actually manufacturing thousands and thousands and thousands of units, what trade-offs do you have to make? Like, for example, were you unhappy with, could you tell us what kind of trade-offs you had to kind of make?
Yeah.
Was there any?
We should have probably made more trade-offs, to be honest, because the product is still quite expensive to produce, and there's over like 70 parts to this product down to the screws. And so I think the good thing is that I was working with a really talented engineer that was kind of designing it for manufacture, and he didn't want to compromise on anything. He wanted to really get every detail in there because it is really such like a tactile product. So even to the point where we've got like a bearing in which the filter arm sits in, and there's like a kind of like flange underneath the wood that kind of clicks into place. All these things have like a really kind of tactile feeling, and you feel the quality of the product. So yeah, we could have probably compromised a lot more, because obviously saving on the bearing that cost $3, a high precision steel bearing, probably could save us costs and be able to retail at a lower price. But I think we just wanted to go with the top product, and I think people are happy with the quality and actually surprised by the quality when they receive it. Now we're starting to potentially strip it back a bit more and do other things with it.
Add something there as well. So I think in terms of like the compromises that we were making, so I think the essence of the product is the price point fits in really well with the product and the ethos of the product, which is, at the end of the day, what we're basically trying to do is we're trying to create a certain type of experience, a certain type of feeling. And in a way, there are so many other coffee machines out there, so we can't compete on the basis of cost. And even on the basis of functionality, we have a really great product and we're happy with it. But, the added value that we give is really that uniqueness. If we were to make, I don't know, the product in plastic, or if the product was to be made in a different way that was maybe more commercially viable, start losing, some of that, of what makes the Barriser. And I think the people that buy it, they know that it's designed with everything in mind. It's designed to use glass, to not make any compromises. And in doing that, by buying the Barriser, they're almost treating themselves to a really, really unique, special product.
I guess it's like one of these products where you don't want any compromises because it's the quality I'm paying for. I'm not paying for something which is... So when you guys had kind of marketed it, do you have a specific customer base in mind or a demographic in mind? Because this is a premium product, but it's not like out of reach for most people. Or I guess you've got to have a certain disposable income to be able to afford something like this, to kind of really appreciate a product like this. So how did you go about identifying your demographic, or was there something that surprised you guys?
Yeah, so just in terms of the custom demographic, so we started out with a crowdfunding campaign. So on crowdfunding, you tend to get a certain type of customer. It tends to be somebody who likes gadgets, who likes new technology, and who's willing to actually contribute to getting that technology off the ground. And so we started out B2C with a very strong business to consumer focus, targeting younger audiences with kind of digital marketing. And now we have found that we have one core target group that definitely uses the Barriser for its functionality. There seems to be there's a lot of people that genuinely can't get out of bed in the morning without a coffee. So that is a functionality thing for them more than anything else. And then we've got the target group of customers that really care about design and really want the design to be beautiful and almost see it as a piece of art. And that's a slightly different group of customers. And then in terms of, I guess, age and affluence at the moment, because we've started from a digital perspective, we're targeting sort of mainly, it works really well with customers between 27 and 35, single, but fairly able to afford a gift like this, or sort of treating themselves to something like this. But we're always continuing to work on the target market, and that's part of what I guess my role is to come in and really do the research in terms of, can we speak to our existing customer group? Can we really find out more and more and more about exactly what our target group is? And then in doing that, we found a lot of new markets to expand into.
Josh, so you mentioned that you had this whole list of people who are like, yeah, how can I buy this product? So it's almost like you got instant kind of signal from the market to say there is a demand for this, I must create this. And sometimes whenever I've spoken with other founders in the past, early success can sometimes be a curse, because you're like, yep, I've got validation from the market. But what was the first thing that kind of went wrong, or what was the biggest challenge after you had yeah, this is a great product, lots of people want it, but what was the first thing that you thought, oh, you know what, shit has hit the fan, or the Mike Tyson quote, you got punched in the face?
Yeah, really good question. I think I didn't know really much about conversion rates and stuff like that. And we did actually have 20,000 people signing up to the product. and who had kind of expressed interest. And we did say that the product was going to cost this when they signed up, so they kind of did know. And I was like, right, 25,000 people times £250, like, we're going to be in the money. And it just didn't go like that. It was, I think, only 1% of people converted on Kickstarter, maybe not even that. And like, that's pretty kind of traditional in terms of like 1 to 3% of your email list is potentially going to convert when you do Kickstarter or these kind of like pre-order platforms. And so people change their minds. People aren't do what they say they're gonna do. And so that was like one of the biggest learning, not to take everything as like black and white. 25,000 people want this product, and people need a bit more convincing, and people change their mind, and that's fine. And in the end, maybe it's not for everyone. And so, yeah, I think that was the biggest learning for me. And that's when I realized that we had to really like, be a lot more kind of strategic about our approach. But yeah, that was definitely a big learning for me.
And when you said that you launched the Kickstarter, it was widely successful. And when it came to actually getting these made in units of thousands and thousands and thousands, did you anticipate, like, what were the biggest things that you hadn't anticipated that came to kind of haunt you in a way?
Well, everything just takes like triple the time when it comes to like actually like manufacturing things. And there's just like so many hidden costs that you don't foresee, like when you're just thinking about the end goal of making a product. And so when it comes to like certifying a product, and like we pretty much ran out of all our money when it came to all the pre-orders, when we had to realize that we had to certify for, the USA market, Europe, Asia, all these different like certifications specific to each country, and then making sure that you've got like a budget in there that you're going to get a certain amount of returns with every product and a certain amount of faults that go wrong with the product. And yeah, just general kind of like how manufacturers work. They do want like a minimum order quantity because it's got to be worth their while at the end of it. And if you're not meeting those requirements, then it's not really in their interest to kind of deal with you. So trying to incentivize these factories with smaller, they want to be seeing like 10,000 MOQs, and this is a product that is still quite a bespoke product in terms of all the glassware, it's hand blown, and like it's all quite organic in that sense. And so it's an interesting one when it comes to manufacturing this.
Yeah, like what Marcus, what you were saying earlier, like that switch from serving a predominantly B2C customer base that ordered via the Kickstarter to going after maybe B2B or maybe going after retailers. How has that transition been for you from an internal perspective?
Yeah, it's difficult because, like you say, you've got core values that shouldn't change. So in terms of when you start off and you've got a certain customer group, that core customer base that really doesn't want to make compromises on the design, the customers that really supported us and made sure that we could even get this to market, you've got to stay true to them. But then also you've got to kind of look at where can we grow in terms of like, what is the commercial potential of this? And I think we realized just after I joined, like late 2018, that we were getting, loads of messages from retailers, like famous retailers that usually would be really hard to get into. And we were getting messages on Selfridges, and we were getting into places like Harrods without really doing much work. So Josh and I kind of spent a little bit of work on that and started building the retail base out. And then all of a sudden, we had a huge amount of growth. And so that really showed us, maybe there's a whole new target market group that we can target. And we need a slightly different channel to do that. So it links into the target market research and really understanding your customer. I think that's the most important learning that I've taken away, because you might start a business and say, oh, well, this is my target group. And that might be true because you might be able to get 100 sales from, 25 to 30 year olds. But then you never know whether if you targeted 40 to 50 year olds, you'd, instead of getting 100 sales, you might get 10,000 sales and go through the roof. So I think that's been really a big learning for me, not to kind of impose sort of my own ideas about what I think the target market is, but to really go from a data-based sort of approach.
Josh probably sees this from a creative perspective, where like the customers who will buy, maybe they're the same or maybe they're different. Like the guy or girl or the person who buys from Selfridges and Harrods may be a completely different demographic to someone who purchases from your website. And like, do you get feedback from these guys? Like, do you get customers writing to you and saying, hey, or do you actually seek this kind of thing from an internal perspective?
Yeah, I think like a bit of both, really. Like we've got an email list of, our community that we're in touch with a lot of time. But we also, the good thing about today is that you can be you can have a direct conversation with these people on social media, whether it's like through Instagram messaging, getting messages saying, oh, we love this, oh, we can't believe that there was something wrong with the sticker when we peeled it off. Like these little kind of like direct kind of bits of feedback just means that we can also like refine the product like a lot quicker than you probably find like 20 years ago. We tend to try and have that direct relationship with our customers online as well, because it's a win-win at the end of the day. If we can create something that and refine on the product, use their feedback, it's going to be better for the customers in the future.
Has there ever been like anything that you may not have expected in terms of how people end up using your product, or like what kind of, because this is aesthetically a really, it just stands out. But I'm curious, what kind of people actually do buy your product?
It's an interesting one. I've had a few interesting stories with regards to, like, I guess some people saying, I remember I was on a call with a retailer in the Middle East, and they were saying, oh, the product's way too cheap. And I was saying to myself, like, okay, well, the product's £345, which is quite a lot, I know, for a lot of people in the UK. But he was like, oh, this seems super cheap. It's a bargain. And I remember sort of thinking to myself, oh, wow, okay, well, that just shows that even that kind of impression of what is expensive in one market might not be expensive in another market. So I think that kind of feedback is always interesting. I mean, Josh is linked really closely to customer service because he still does a lot of that, because that's really important to us. So Josh will probably have some good stories as well. But yeah.
Yeah, well, one of our first ever customers was actually a celebrity. It was quite funny. I was just doing I chose 10 like early bird backers on Kickstarter that were based in London, just to get feedback on the product before we press go on mass manufacturing, if there's anything wrong with the product. And so I wanted to create some content as well, just to kind of share with the community as well, to show that the products we're just getting feedback and blah, 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 and getting them excited about everything. And yeah, we were driving around London, and the guy that was filming at the time, I think he said that he used to live in like West Hampstead at the time. And we were approaching this house. He was like, yeah, I think Jonathan Ross used to live up here. I was like, oh, cool. And then I was like, oh, this is the postcode. And he was like, yeah, this is Jonathan Ross's house. And we were like, and then we were just going nuts, and I couldn't believe it. And yeah, just knocked at the door, and I just handed over the barrister to his wife. And was just like freaking out and couldn't believe it, because at the time I was a bit kind of like stressed out, and it just gave me like a glimmer of hope to be like, people like this are buying the product. I was honoured to like deliver it, and I wouldn't have known unless I did that as well. So he would have just slipped through the net. But yeah, we've got some exciting people like that, and I also managed to get some feedback from him about the product as well. So just asked his opinion on it and stuff like that. And so we might send him something in the future. But yeah, that was an interesting.
I mean, for those of you who don't know Josh Renouf, he's very oblivious to celebrities, the only way ethics, made in Chelsea. These people, they mean nothing to him.
No,
he spends most of his time reading the Monocle, Wallpaper magazine, this kind of high-end stuff, or philosophy maybe even, that kind of thing. You've got some well-known people within the circles of design who actually have your product. Do you see that as like a ultimate accolade for your design work and the ideas that you have? Or how do you take that?
Yeah, we've got like a wall of fame now, just because we just get so pumped when we see kind of things on like Instagram and stuff like that. And it's all been organic, which is also like something that we're really proud about. We haven't really done it just for like advertising or anything like that. And there's just been some really weird things that, like, we had like Mike Skinner from like the streets, and he did his own video on Instagram, and people just tagging us in it, being like, as if, and then we're like, what? And yeah, and then we get stuff like that. And then we've had like Daniel Arsham, the artist.
This, by the way, Josh, this is an Android phone. I'm so sorry. Yeah. But this is the artist that you're referring to, like with the Brillo. What is this about? Like, how did this happen? Because did he send this to you, or?
Yeah, so he just like direct message us on Instagram, like with clapping hands in regards to like a post that we put on our story about Hypebeast and how they like just featured us. And I think he was in like a recent press article on Hypebeast as well, so he must have come across us on that. I was just freaking out. Like, I've always been a huge fan of his, and I just think what he's doing is quite an interesting space. And yeah, we just reached out to him. We've got some other guys in the company that are big fans of his as well, and we just strategically reached out to him and said, look, send us your address, we'll send you a barrel, don't say anything else. And he managed to find, and we said something like, we've even got one of your books in our studio. And I think he realized that we weren't just saying that and we sent him a photo of it. And so, yeah, he sent us his address. We sent him a Barasur, and then 4 weeks later, there was this big box at the concierge at the office. And originally I thought it was like some of my like girlfriend's interior design like samples. And I was just like, the guys are like, "Oh, can you take this box up, Josh? It's been sitting here for weeks." I was like, "Oh, I'll get it next week." It's like fuming, because I was like, so probably just like, she gets like these like granite like samples, just like marbles and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I hadn't ordered anything, and I ended up taking it up. It was like 10 kilograms, and we just like got into the office and it said my name. I was like, "What's going on here?" Opened it up and it just said like it's from studio of Daniel Arsham, and I was just freaking out. And then pulled up the cardboard and saw Brillo, and I'd seen him on Instagram previously talking about this product. And it's like, yeah, one of 500 edition, like bit of art that he'd been collaborating with the Andy Warhol archives. And yeah, I just couldn't believe it. I was just almost in tears. And so,
Wow.
Yeah, it's just like another thing that just keeps us going, because it's not an easy journey with what we're doing. And so to see people like that, again, showing love for the brand and what we do, just gets us pumped.
It's quite funny because at that point in time, we actually had a new team member join, and that was their first day. And I remember, because I don't think she knew who Daniel Arsham was, so it didn't really like ring a bell straight away. But he's like super famous, obviously, in the art space. And I remember like thinking to myself, like, we were just completely losing it in the office, and we just had somebody new joining. I just remember just thinking to myself, like, oh God, we've got to tell her we're not usually like this. But it was really, it was such a fun experience. It was crazy as well. Like, I just think, especially for someone from the art background, that must have been just such a pat on the back.
I actually saw this on Josh's story, and I messaged him. I was like, "What the hell is this?" And I looked up the artist, and it was just like a limited edition, and it looked so cool. I'm trying to get the picture of this item on the screen so we can all share. But after this, I want to go back to the pains of everyday kind of thing, because I think that's the glamour side. Like every business, the public facing part, you see the cool stuff like this happening. And I mean, this is just honestly, like, even for me, I'm just a regular guy, I guess. I was blown away. I was like, this is so cool. And so you've got it do you still put it in a protective case somewhere, Josh, or where is it now? Well, is it on eBay?
Yeah, I mean, so we're moving into a new office, well, a bigger space this weekend, and I'm going to bring it in so we can have it in the office. And it's like, yeah, it's almost like a glass kind of protector over it with like a vinyl, Daniel Arsham vinyl on the front. And so I still can't believe that it happened. And it's just, yeah, he's a creative genius, and he's almost like commercializing art, and he's just, riding the wave at the moment. So, yeah.
So now I want to go back to the real life of running, because there's the creative part, which is very fun and sexy. But I want to talk to you guys about like the difficult parts, and what have you learned from dealing with your everyday customers, dealing with backlogs, dealing with delays, and maybe even damaged products when you've sent, because this glassware and like DPDs and the deliveries of this world. What have you learned from that painful exercise?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, there are some difficult, harder parts to the business. There always is. But I think the most important thing from our end is what we've learned is that whenever we've had a problem, whenever we've had an issue, our customers have always kind of backed our corner. And when we've had delays, we've communicated those delays to customers, and we've explained the reasons, and we've always tried to be really transparent. But at the end of the day, like, the community's always backed us up. And that's a really great learning, to know that actually, because when you launch a product, you're always really, really stressed about delivering on time. And then you realize that actually it does always take a little bit longer than you thought it would. So we were just thinking, for the customers, they must be getting stressed. But actually, the customers have always been, they've been so great. Our community is so great. And I think whilst that it might be a negative that you do have delays with manufacturing, and that definitely happened with us, the positive from that's been that we've learned a lot more about our community and how supportive they are.
But do you guys work closely with your factory? Or because I think I did speak to Josh about this like ages ago, when he was explaining you've got a factory dedicated just to making this product for you, and how closely do you have to work with them?
Yeah, so we've got a factory based in Shenzhen, and they've got their own kind of in-house engineers, and we've got to like obviously work really closely with them to make sure that the end result is kind of somewhere in the middle, and as close to what we want as possible. And so they've obviously got the experience about what is possible in terms of manufacturing, and we've just got an idea about how we want it to look and what we want it to be made out of and what the function needs to be. So yeah, we're constantly working with them on refining the current product and also with new products down the line.
Do you guys have to fly out there once in a while to talk to them? How does that work?
Yeah, so well, at the moment we've just been having to get on the same time as them. So obviously I think I've been out to China for about 1 or 2 months, I think back in 2018. Obviously we wanted to go last year, but with all the restrictions we couldn't. And so yeah, I think Markus and I are probably looking to kind of get a trip and maybe do some remote working from Hong Kong and kind of jump over to China now. But yeah, I mean, there's only kind of so much we can do. We've got some other UK guys out in China that help with the kind of communication and have boots on the ground. And so they've got experience with working directly with the factories that we don't. And there's things where it's like they really have to push on getting like a specific answer from them, because if you just go out there and you ask the factory if they can do it, they just like to say yes instead of saying no. And you end up going further down the line and you realize that they can't actually do what they said that they could do.
I guess they want to please you. They want to please you so much that they don't say no. But yeah, and then a couple of weeks down the line, when you actually see their finished product or whatever that may be, kind of you're like, what the hell? To be honest, a lot of the founders that we've featured so far have been based in the UK, so they don't have the supply chain and fulfillment issue. But what advice would you give to someone, who's looking to deal with people overseas, especially factories in China, and when you're in manufacturing? What kind of top tips would you have for them?
I think from my end, I think finding someone out there who lives there and has kind of like boots on the ground that you can trust and rely on is a lot better than trying to do it yourself, because you'll end up probably spending a lot of time and a lot of money with flights, whatever it may be, going back and forth and not kind of getting what you need. And so if you can kind of work with someone almost like, that speaks your language and can hopefully speak theirs, what you need to get done, and, done it before. And there are loads of people out there. It's just trying to find the right ones.
Yeah, I would also just add to that. So I think that was one of the main reasons, like the previous company that I was with was on the market, was because there is just a bridge to cross. I mean, it's a communication thing, it's a language thing, it's also a setting expectations thing. So when you're in the UK and somebody promises you to do something, then you just accept it, because you say, well, if they don't do it, then we have a legal system in place and we can make sure that it happens. But at the same time, when you're working in, I guess, China and other countries, it works differently. You have to be able to take what they're saying, you have to look at it, and you have to be able to understand what within that is realistic, or what point is somebody just trying to please you. And for that, I think we've worked really well having someone in between us and the factory. So that's what a factory management company does really well, is to bridge that gap. So I would always suggest doing that if you are a startup founder. The problem is that initially when you start out, you approach it from the perspective of, oh, well, if I go out there, I can do it myself. And then you get all these people promising you that they can do it, and you only learn that it's actually a lot harder than what they're making out when you go through and commit to one of these factories. Yeah, you have to almost trust the factory management company that they are giving you value, because obviously adds a little bit of cost.
I think you guys could probably write a book of fulfillment and logistics and all these things, because I think you had some initial delays. Because I remember Josh was like, one day I was having a chat with him, he's like just stressed out, and I was, hey man, what's happening? I think that's when you had the first delay from the factory, and I think your customers were really super understanding to the delays and they're forgiving, which is really good.
I think, like Markus said, I think the biggest thing that we've learned is, especially with these pre-orders and kind of crowdfunding, is as long as you can just be as open and kind of transparent and honest about what's going on, and not leaving it too late to communicate, doing it every month and making sure you're on your updates and stuff like that. People are just understanding. They just want to know what's going on. And so you can just be almost overly communicative in that sense, that you just realize that people are, human, and the backers know that you're human and things go wrong, and that's just kind of part of the process. And so I think also just kind of educating backers and the community on the process is really important as well, because not many people know like the journey that a product comes from, and they just see that in the product. And so I think that's one of our goals as well as like a brand, is to kind of like also take people on that journey as well, just so they have a bit more of like an understanding, and also just like, I guess, a general appreciation to products in a sense, because I think that's one thing, especially with today's society of this kind of like throwaway society. So yeah, if we can kind of educate people on that journey a bit more, then even when it comes to discarding of a product, if it is faulty, trying to repair it as well is a good way.
I saw on the website you actually have a section dedicated to ordering spare parts. So if something were to break, you can just order again.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what we've been trying to like strategize on in terms of our business model. So with the product itself, like having these add-ons, like not having to get a whole new product, and if anything goes wrong, it's just the base, we can kind of take the base back, fix it, and send you a kind of a new one, and either recycle the parts or use it as like B stock and stuff like that. And so yeah, trying to be less kind of wasteful in that sense.
Yeah, I think that's a super important part of our brand moving forward, is that ever since the beginning, we've tried to design it in a way where it can be as sustainable as possible. So like the wood is FSC certified, which just means that they replant the wood whenever they cut down a tree. And then even with the parts, like Josh says, it's designed in a way where you can move parts and you can exchange one if it's broken. But then even we really like, that's super important to us, and we know that it's really important to our customer base as well, is to keep working on that sustainability objective. And that's why it's important for us to even take a step further and try and think about in the future, how can we really build an electronics company which maybe on the face of it might not seem sustainable, because some people say electronics are not sustainable, but then how can you mold that into a sustainable company moving forward? And little things like being able to exchange parts, but then also we're thinking about other things in the future, like buyback programs. For example, if somebody wants to give back their unit, we're happy to buy that back and then put it online for somebody else to buy it cheaper. So these kind of things, I think, can really add value in terms of the sustainability side moving forward.
I've never come across something like that before. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite a difficult one, because like sustainable manufacturing is like an oxymoron, right? You're taking something from the earth to produce something. And so the less you can produce, obviously, the better. And so obviously there's consumerism and stuff in the world that we're making a business. But if we can have a bit more of a kind of circular economy, then that's going to be much better than just kind of like making stuff going to landfill, making stuff going to landfill. And so I think sustainability as well, like in today's society, is definitely becoming a lot more of like a buzzword, and kind of like a marketing way of just kind of building a brand that's sustainable, when you really need to kind of do a lot of digging with like the whole process. So that's currently what we're really kind of working on, and refining our kind of business model and strategy about just kind of closing the loop and making sure we're just a lot more conscious of what we're producing.
Yeah, it's like you will leave a carbon footprint, whatever you do, but you can make it as light as possible. So it's not 100% sustainable, but it's at least better than doing literally nothing about it, which seems to be the way a lot of companies run these days. You've received coverage from all these really cool places, but from conversion, sales, does that actually equate to actual hard numbers that you can go to your accountant with and say, hey, we may have been on wallpaper, but is actually what the result has been?
I mean, I guess that's a question for me, isn't it? Yeah, so the hype definitely translates into sales. How much sales is always the question. So like if you put an article up in one of these magazines, you're going to be seen by hundreds of thousands of people. And then it's the same with Josh when he had all these people signing up to his email list. From the first, if you're looking at it first time, it looks like you've got 20,000 people who want to purchase your product. That's true with PR. But then when you start working out the conversion rate on the back of that, it starts, dividing itself by almost 100, and you ended up with maybe 1% conversion or 0.5% conversion. I think with regards to the PR side of things, it's about building a brand as well. We're conscious that we need to build the brand and tell people about who we are as a business, as well as driving sales. With PR, we can definitely say that we've seen successes, huge successes in terms of sales as well. But obviously, not every article is going to be as successful as another one. But it's brand building, so we're happy with that.
The thing is, we just invested in a rebrand ourselves. So we spent a whole day with a consultant. She went through the whole thing from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. And although it's not really tangible, we can't go to the landlord and say, hey, how cool our brand is. This surely counts for something. But at the same time, the long term is going to hopefully, stop paying off, because that's the kind of tone of voice or positioning we want to go towards. So yeah, I understand completely about what you've mentioned. In terms of like the future, what can we expect from Joy Resolve? What exciting products do you have coming up? And without giving too much away, could you tell us a bit more about what the future looks like for you guys?
Yeah, I'm the type of guy who's just got loads of ideas, and sometimes I need Markus to kind of like put me in line and kind of really get me strategizing on the product pipeline. So we've got around like 20 products in the bank, but it's what kind of makes sense in terms of the next product. We're still trying to like get the most out of what we're doing at the moment with regards to the Barasur, and we've got loads of feedback from our community that, like, for example, I would love this product if it did 2 cups, because what's my partner going to do when I'm just like brewing a coffee in bed and she's got or he's got nothing? And so we're making a 2 cup, and so that's been on the cards for a while. That's just trying to figure out the best approach. And so we're developing a 2 cup brewer there that also does like a larger serving, because the American market need like a pint of coffee in the morning. And that's a lot of the feedback we've been getting, their grandes and stuff like that. It's mainly also just kind of like our general kind of process as a company, and trying to make sure that, like I said before, when it comes to just like any faulty products, making sure that's like we've got a process in place to make sure that we're doing our best in terms of the environment there. And so we're really strategizing on that. We've also got some other kind of like bigger products in the pipeline, whether it might be like an espresso machine, and we're moving into potentially like the homeware market. But yeah, I don't want to stress Markus out.
I think for us, it's important at the moment. For us, it's about more than just turning over revenue as well. So we've decided that as a company, Josh and I, we want to leave a positive mark on the world. Like, we want to do more than just make money with the business. And for us, we've found that we launched, 3 products last year. We launched a T extension, we launched the wireless chargers, and there's a lot of products that we've already done. But it's also important for us, if we're thinking about who we are as a business, we also want to make sure that we're launching like the right products at the right times. And we don't want to put products out there which then 3 years later might not get used, because we haven't thought about the product enough for them to be, perfect for the consumer. So I think what we're trying to do is basically, at this point, we're trying to build it all into a solution that works on all levels. And you need, if we want to maintain that value of sustainability, then when we launch new products, we also need to have that circular economy side that's built as well. So we're just looking at all of the different things in the business that we need to build, so that we're focusing on the right things first, and then we bring it all together at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just kind of like starting with the why, really, like why we're doing this, like why do we need to what's this kind of problem that we're solving? And so we just want to make sure that we're not just bringing any old product out, and everything that we do bring out is considered and there's a real purpose behind it.
You gave me a gift actually just before Christmas, but I didn't want to show it because it could be sensitive, or maybe you haven't launched it. It's basically the candle holder made out of recyclable coffee.
That's fine, yeah.
Let me just quickly grab it. What I want to say is, in that time, why don't you tell us how we can get in touch with you? I'll go and grab the little thing you gave me.
Yeah. So this is the product where we were making stuff out of waste coffee, weren't we? We saw that when going into like a coffee roasters or whatever it may be, and asking for your daily coffee or whatever, the barista would pour the shot of coffee, do the milk, whatever it may be, and then bang all the coffee waste into a bin. And I was just like, I wonder where all that's going. And we kind of collaborated with a company called Smile Plastics that were kind of working on a material like this that was mixing kind of 70% coffee waste with 30% recycled plastic. We get the material in like 1 meter by 2 meters. We made a coffee table, which you can see there. Got another one there out of waste coffee. I think Markus has got one in his place as well. And yeah, we made some little accessories. So Son's got that kind of candle holder and stuff like that, which wasn't the most kind of like revenue driving products, but it's something that has like a really strong narrative to it, and that we were just really kind of, I was obsessed about this material. I just thought it was amazing.
I mean, I guess this kind of says everything about your company in one little kind of thing. It's like recyclable, sustainable. It's actually aesthetically really pleasing, and it actually is really, really well made. I think the first thing I said to you was I finally have a Joy Resolve product in my house, and I was actually really happy because this is really nice.
Oh, we need to get you a Barry.
Yeah, definitely.
We should have a link that we can put in so everyone else can actually buy. The purpose of this is talk about you guys, not about me. I'm actually genuinely really excited. Well, firstly, I'm really happy that you guys came because you're of the 10 people in our series, you guys are the first ones who are actually creating something from beginning to end. So from factory to actual fulfillment and the whole design principle. That's what I was really keen to kind of drill down on, because you've got a whole philosophy behind your products that you have and you kind of live and breathe it. And there aren't many companies that you meet that have that kind of idea and are able to follow through. I think in terms of last words, I'll put the link in between wherever this is going to go out so people can find you. Any last words of wisdom or anything you want to leave people with?
Marcus, after you.
Oh, I think, just generally, thank you so much for having us on this show. I really appreciate it. And I hope that we could maybe provide a little tiny bit of insight. But thanks so much for having us. It's been really great.
We'll get you guys back in for series 2 and kind of continue this discussion and maybe a few pints at the Cat and Mutton.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm quite excited for you to get the Mouse guys on because they've got tight schedules and I'd like to hear a podcast about their journey as well. They've gone through lots of ups and downs. But thanks for having us. I'd be honoured to do it again.
Thank you.